Hey everyone, so today I'm going to debunk some myths about the Dodge Viper. There's a lot of myths about this car. Probably the most common myth I've heard about this car is that it has a truck engine. It's not true at all. The inspiration sort of came from the truck engine. They wanted to do something more than a V8, but they didn't want to go V12 on the car, so that pretty much left the V10. Dodge had the Iron V10 and the Ram pickup at the time. However, this is not that engine. The only characteristic it has in common, I believe, is the bore centers are the same. But other than that, the engine is completely different. It is top to bottom a completely different engine other than the cylinder count and the center bores. The engine was designed by Lamborghini. Chrysler owned Lamborghini at the time, and they sent it off to them. That's why you see a lot of Italian architecture, and there's dual inlets, powder-coated intake, powder-coated valve covers. This is very Italian-looking, very similar to Ferraris and Lamborghinis. So, a special one-off engine for this car, not a truck engine in any way, shape, or form. Another big myth about this car: it is crazy to control, it's going to kill you, it's impossible to drive. Bear in mind, this car has a lot of horsepower and a lot of torque. The torque is available from idle all the way up to red line. It makes torque everywhere. So this is not like driving a little four-cylinder or something else where it takes a while for the engine to start making power. It makes power everywhere. If you treat the gas pedal like a light switch, where it's either all the way on or all the way off, then you're going to get yourself in trouble. And you run the risk of getting into an accident with the car. You need to have a lot of respect when you drive this car. You know, half throttle input is usually more than enough for getting around, passing people, getting the car moving. Full throttle, yeah, the car is an animal. It's no problem shredding the tires and first gear, second gear, it'll chirp third, no problem. You have 500 pounds of torque on demand at almost any RPM. After 2,000, you're already almost into 400 pounds of torque. So it's not undrivable. You just need to have a lot of respect and understand you're not driving something that, you know, doesn't make a lot of power or takes time to build power like a smaller displacement engine does. Another big myth: oh, it's an American car, it doesn't handle, it's garbage. When this second generation Viper was new, they ran this car up against the Ferrari 355, the 911 Turbos, the Supras, the NSXs, all the big stuff from Europe and Japan. This car outhandled all of those. It beat them in the slalom, it beat them in the skid pad. That was the standard GTS, not even the ACR model. So the standard GTS, when it was new, was beating all those cars. And even some of the newer cars. I believe this car beat the 360 Ferrari as well. It set a record in the slalom when it was new at, I believe, 72 or 73 miles an hour, which was 2 miles an hour faster than the Ferrari. So that whole, oh, the car doesn't handle, it's American, it only goes fast in a straight line, total bullshit. This car handles great. Some of the myth came from, at the limits of adhesion for this car, it doesn't give a lot of warning when it's going to let go. I think that's where some of the rumors came up for this car about it not handling, but the car handles fine. As long as you know what you're doing, there's no reason why you can't push this as much as any other high-performance car from Europe or Japan. The interior gets really hot. You know, it's going to burn you. You know, it's so uncomfortable to drive. Bullshit. It's a little bit warmer. I usually drive on this thing on nice days with the windows down. It's a little bit warmer by your feet. You're not roasting. You know, you don't have to drive with the air conditioning on because you feel like you're going to be on fire the whole time. That's total crap. A tiny bit warmer, not a big deal. I don't even notice it. I had this thing out today. It's almost 80 degrees. I had the windows down, didn't even have the air conditioning on, and I don't even notice it. It's fine. There's not a huge temperature difference. You'll really only notice it if someone says something to you. Other than that, I don't even feel the difference. So that whole, oh, you know, there's a 50-degree difference, some people have said, between, you know, the top of your body and the bottom. Bullshit. Total crap. All right, what else? Oh, this car is ridiculously expensive to insure. Companies don't want to insure it. It's too much of a liability. It's too much of a safety hazard. Bullshit. When I was looking, when I first bought the car, I put it on my regular car insurance policy. I believe it was $1,800 for the year on my regular insurance policy that I have my regular daily driver on. I then decided, because I don't drive the car very much, I put it on a collector car policy. The collector car policy has an agreed value. So you basically tell them what you feel the car is worth, and they write the premium for the insurance up that way. This car cost me $650 a year to insure it. There are a couple minor restrictions. I'm allowed to drive it no more than 5,000 miles a year, and it's got to be stored in a locked garage. And I can't use it for commuting or anything like that. It's got to be for pleasure drives and car shows only. But other than that, there's no other restrictions. I can drive it pretty much any time I want. If I want to go grab dinner or whatnot. It's just not supposed to be used for commuting purposes or driving it to work or whatnot. So that whole, no insurance company wants to insure these things because they're crazy. Total BS. You can get insurance for them. It's a car at the end of the day. They'll insure it. And I recommend if you don't drive your car very much like me, get a collector car policy. You'll save yourself a ton of money, and there's not a lot of parameters on it. It's not a historic policy, it's a collector car policy. There are some restrictions that you might have to abide by, but it's not a big deal. If you lightly drive the car and you don't drive it every day, get a collector car policy. The car takes some sort of exotic fluids or race gas or something like that. No, it doesn't. It takes 91 octane premium like every other car that runs on premium. 91 octane or minimum that you get at any gas station. All the fluids you can pretty much pick up at Walmart. Takes synthetic 10W30, 10 quarts with a standard Dodge filter that fits on most trucks and SUVs. Not hard to get. Regular DOT3 brake fluid, washer fluid, takes green engine coolant. There's nothing exotic in this car. It takes 75, 140 oil for the rear differential with 4 ounces of friction modifier, just like a lot of other performance cars. There's your engine oil. 1030, full synthetic. Not hard to get, not hard to find. The only thing on this car that's somewhat exotic in a little bit is the transmission fluid. It was something called Castrol Syntorq. They don't make it anymore. It's basically just a gear oil. Some car places don't have it, some do. I run an AMSOIL equivalent in it, as long as it meets, I believe, the GL4 rating. Here we go. This is what I have in the transmission. GL4. You get it from AMSOIL. A couple other, I believe Redline makes it. A couple companies make it. Again, you might not be able to find it at Walmart, but it's not too hard to find. That's the closest thing to an exotic fluid that this thing takes. It's not too expensive, and you're not changing the trans fluid that much, so it's not a big deal. All right, and the parts are expensive and hard to get. No, not really. A lot of the parts in this car are parts bin car, a lot of little switches and buttons. A lot of them are cheap. A lot of them are off of other Dodge vehicles. They're not expensive. A lot of them are hard to find. Some parts can be, body panels specifically. They're obviously specific to this car, and they can be a little bit pricey to get the body panels for the car if you need to. However, there are a couple places that buy wrecked Vipers and part them out. You can go to those guys. I've bought one item from one of them. I had a little bubbling on the valve cover. I bought a new one. I didn't buy used. I bought a new one from one of those guys. They were great. They showed pictures. The pricing was fair, and they shipped it to me right away. No issues. And they're great if you needed something or one-off, something exotic, something that would be harder to get if you didn't want to go to a dealer or buy it new. So, but most of the mechanicals are pretty easy to get. And a lot of the maintenance items are no big deal. Spark plugs and fluids and filters, that kind of stuff. And a lot of the other parts are just parts off of other Dodges that they use to save money. So most of the parts aren't expensive, and the ones that are, you can usually get from one of those guys that take apart wrecked Vipers. You can get it secondhand, not a big deal. So those are pretty much the common myths for the Dodge Viper. It's a great car to own. The prices are pretty good now. They are starting to come up a little bit. So if you are looking for one, especially a second generation one, now is probably the time to jump in if you're going to do it, because prices have been creeping up over the last couple of years. I've had this car for about 5 years, and since then it's probably gone up about $10,000 since I purchased it. So hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to my channel. I'll be doing a few more videos with this car and my 2000 Cobra R. Thanks.